Have you ever read something that just flows? You know, where one idea melts smoothly into the next and you're just pulled along effortlessly? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain on the secret sauce behind that magic: transition words. They are an absolute superpower for making your writing clear, logical, and honestly, way more persuasive. So let's dive in.
Okay, let's just see this in action right away. Look at the left. You've got a bunch of statements. They're fine, I guess, but they feel clunky, disconnected, right? Now, look over at the right. It's the exact same information, but with a few key words dropped in, it's transformed into this smooth, logical argument. That difference? That is the power we are going to learn how to use today.
So to get there, we're going to follow our architect's blueprint. First, we'll look at the plan in the blueprint for clarity. Then we'll open up your core connector toolkit. After that, we'll learn the rules of the road, then level up from good to great, and finally, we'll put it all together by building the model. So let's get started with Section 1, the blueprint for clarity. I mean, before you can build a solid argument, you got to understand your materials, right? You need to know what they do and why they're so important. So what are these things, really? Well, at their very core, transition words are connectors. Their whole job is to create cohesion. Think of them as logical bridges that you build for your reader, guiding them from one idea to the next so they never get lost. And they've pretty much got three main jobs. First off, they signal the relationship between your ideas. Are you about to contrast something or add a point or show a result? Second, they're like signposts, telling the reader, hey, you are here in the argument. And third, they just make your writing sound a whole lot better by getting rid of that choppy, repetitive phrasing. Okay, moving on to Section 2. It's time to open up our core connector toolkit. We're going to look at the essential tools that every single writer needs to have ready to go. First up in the toolkit, words that show contrast. These are your pivot words. You know when you need to make a turn in your argument or introduce an idea that goes against what you just said? You'll reach for words like however, nevertheless, or on the other hand. And check out the effect. It's so simple, but it's powerful. You might be making a really strong point, but the second you drop in however, you're signaling to your reader, okay, hang on, we're about to look at this from a totally different angle. But what if you're not changing direction? What if you're actually trying to build momentum? Well, for that, you need words of addition. Think moreover, furthermore, in addition. These words tell your reader, hey, we're adding another brick to this wall we're building. This is such a great way to add weight to what you're saying. You make your claim and then you hit them with a moreover. It's like saying, and if you weren't convinced already, here's another thing. It just adds this layer of authority. Next up in the toolkit, we've got the heavy hitters, the words that show cause and effect. These are the ones that connect an action directly to its outcome. Words like therefore, thus, and consequently draw a straight, undeniable line for your reader. I mean, you can't really get any clearer than this, can you? Demand rose, therefore prices increased. There is zero ambiguity there. That word therefore forges this unbreakable link between the cause and the effect. All right, so we have our tools. Now for Section 3, the rules of the road. And don't worry, this isn't going to be complicated. It's really just about knowing where to put these words and, crucially, how to punctuate them correctly. And the great news here is that they are incredibly flexible. You can put one right at the start of a sentence for a big, bold signal. You can tuck it into the middle to create a more subtle, natural rhythm. Or you can use it to directly connect two closely related ideas. Okay, let's tackle a question that trips up so many people. When you use a word like however to connect two complete sentences, what do? Do you use a semicolon? Or do you start a whole new sentence? Let's clear this up once and for all. And here it is. On the left, using just a comma creates something called a comma splice. That little comma just isn't strong enough to hold two full sentences together. The correct way, which you see on the right, is to use a semicolon. Think of it as a super comma. It's doing the heavy lifting of connecting those two big ideas properly. So with the basics down, we can move on to Section 4, from good to great. This is all about taking what we know and refining it to make your writing really stand out. Now, there are two common traps you want to avoid. First is overuse. If every single sentence starts with a transition word, it's going to sound super robotic. The fix is easy. Only use them when you actually need to build that bridge. The second trap is mismatched logic, like using therefore when you really just mean also. To fix that, just say the relationship out loud first and then pick the word that fits. And here's a pro tip to really elevate your style: grow your vocabulary. Don't just get stuck using however a million times. Rotate in some alternatives like nevertheless or by contrast. Instead of always defaulting to for example, try for instance or specifically. It makes the rhythm of your writing so much more engaging. Okay, theory is great and all, but let's see this stuff in the wild. It's time for our final section, building the model. We're going to take apart a really well-written paragraph and see exactly how all these pieces work together. First, just take a second to read through this. Feel that flow? See how it moves from a general statement to a problem, then an example, then a consequence, and finally a solution? It's just seamless. And that is all thanks to some very carefully chosen transition words. So let's break down that logic. However comes in to introduce the central problem. Then, for instance, gives us a concrete example to make that problem feel real. After that, consequently, shows us the negative result of that problem. And to finish it off, nevertheless pivots us toward a more hopeful solution. Each word has a specific job, and together they build this incredibly strong logical structure. So when it all comes down to it, here's what you need to remember. Transitions are the logical bridges you're building for your reader. Your job is to always match the word to the relationship you're showing. Don't be afraid to vary where you put them to create a nice rhythm, and please remember that punctuation really matters. It's part of the structure. And that brings us to the end. I'll just leave you with this one question. Think about your own work, whatever project is on your desk right now. What is the single most important idea you need to connect for your audience? Find that connection, choose the right bridge, and I promise your writing will just flow. Thanks for joining me today.